You've got quite a substantial background. So I don't know if you were able to condense that and, give us a high overview.
So who am I? What have I been doing? So my name is Graham Hill. As you know, I have been a consultant for over 30 years. I started out at British Airways doing operations research, switched to IT and doing systems development work for KPMG, picked up a lot of knowledge at the first round of business process engineering in the 1990s on what have you, re-engineering, billing and collection, extended into marketing as often is the case, and the last 10 years, I've done a variety of things. I was a part in the partnership at PricewaterhouseCoopers, left about 20 years ago. Most of my work today is around the decisioning space in marketing and customer service, increasingly these days in AI. But I've also done things like restructuring frequent flyer program, airline frequent flyer programs for a number of European airlines, restructuring multi-sided markets for energy comparison websites, and currently and spent a lot of time doing GDPR and all things to do with data for European telco. So that's really me in a nutshell.
Great. And that's quite a broad background. It's across different sectors. You've also been across the world, right, Graham?
Yeah, so if I had a USP, it would be what I call 30-30 vision. So I've had 30 major clients in 19 different countries over the last 30 years. And these are household names. There's companies like Toyota and Vodafone and American Airlines and all large corporates. I only work for large corporates by and large. So
Great.
most European countries, America, Australia, Singapore, and 19 different countries over the time. I lived in Belgium for a while, for 3 years, and live in Germany at the moment, national, a UK national. So been all around the world. Most of my time was spent on a plane until COVID arrived, and I haven't been on a plane since.
Okay. So, well, hopefully those times are coming back,
I
at
hope
least to a
so.
certain extent. Yeah. So one of the things that I noticed on your LinkedIn profile, Graham, is you talk a lot about service design, service experience.
Yes,
And on the other hand, there's so many CX professionals.
yes.
So can you explain us what exactly is the difference or what the link is between both?
It's a very good question. It's a question that's being asked for quite some time. So, and that you could add UX design into that as well. So, how do we design the user experience? How do we design the customer experience? How do we design services? So, the way that I look upon this is quite simple. I think about what I call the service experience, and I divide that into two parts: the service part. So, if you think about services giving people competencies and resources so they can get their jobs done, and obviously the design part is how we design that process in a structured, organized way. So there's the service that we typically go to companies for, and then there's the experience, which is the thing we get in addition. So customers rarely go for the experience by itself. Even if I go to Disney World in Paris, I'm going for the service as much as the experience. I'm going for the short waiting times, the being served at lunchtime when I've got all the kids with me, and all the entry to the parks. If that doesn't work, the experience won't help you. So we go for service. We need to use design service, but we get an experience at the same time. It's as we both co-create, those the provider and us. So we need to think about how we facilitate the experience, but it's the design that comes first.
Yeah.
Design without an experience is impossible to do. An experience without a service doesn't really work. Let's put it this way: if I'm doing service design or customer experience design work for clients, I want to have a team of service designers around me, people trained at design school in service design, because they're as good as it gets. Customer experience, these people come from all sorts of places. They're rarely trained in service design or experience design. They give themselves a nice badge, customer experience designers, but they're not the real McCoy. So if you want to design a great experience, get a team of service designers around you, get a team of people from IT and data engineering and behavioral economics to be able to design those nudges.
All right. That's clear, I think. So summarized, the service is what we design for. It's what people buy our brand for, but at the
Yes,
end, the outcome is the customer experience.
that's absolutely right. It's the bits on top of the service. We go for the service, we get an experience.
Yes, great. So you mentioned Disneyland Paris, which we all know, but are there any examples of great service design that come to mind?
It's a very good question, and I've actually thought of three different examples. So for me, service doesn't have to be long and complicated. It should be fast and easy and make life better for customers to get their jobs done. So perhaps the best example of that is Google. You know what to do. It's become a verb. It provides a fantastic service, and the experience you get is fast and easy and universal. So at one extreme, you have Google as a fantastic design of a service and a satisfying experience in the process. I think at the other end, you have companies like Lexus. I worked with Toyota in the past, I was head of CRM in Germany, and I worked with Lexus as well. Lexus has this concept of omotonashi, the Japanese discipline of providing exemplary service to guests. And they go through a very careful process of thinking about everything to do with the service you're going to get when you go to a dealership or driving your Lexus or taking on a service after that. And they think about the experience, very, very carefully. They have this concept of dojos where they trial everything out through a prototyping process. For me, and if you think about it, their motto, the pursuit of perfection, is what it's all about. You never get to be perfect, but that continuous iteration towards that helps you become better than your competitors.
Hmm.
So for me, the ultimate service in many ways is that designed through a careful iterative prototyping process with everything considered, that of Lexus. Everything else is in between.
I definitely want to toss in a recent article called Why I Don't Believe in Empathic Design by Don Norman. There he explains why we should stop designing experience around customers, but instead about their jobs to be done. Can you
Yes.
elaborate a bit on that?
So if you think about human-centered design, the concept is that we design services or products. A product is a proposition around people, and that out of that comes the idea of the persona. Here's a caricature of a person we're designing for that person. Now that's useful, but the point that Don is trying to make is that we all have things we want to get done, jobs to be done. We have desired outcomes, how we measure success, which is why we're doing the jobs in the first place. We interact with others to get access to resources to get our jobs done faster, easier, and better than doing them by ourselves. So rather than design around this notional persona that tells you nothing about what they're trying to do, instead design around the things they're trying to get done.
Hmm.
And then if you want to do so, create a persona around people who have that same need to get things done in the same way. Why do we do that? Why is it important? First of all, it's a better way to design. And we know that's a better way because if you look at the research of Strategen, who won Tony Owitt's innovation organization, they find that taking an outcome-driven innovation approach driven by jobs to be done and desired outcomes delivers an 86% success rate in innovation. Our normal success rate for innovation is around about 80% failure rate, not
Yeah.
success rate. So it delivers a diametrically opposed success compared to the normal innovation process, which is mostly about failure. And if you want to do even better than 86%, the way to do that is by being really, really fast, responding to customers' changing outcome. If you do that, you get success up to 95% success rate.
Spectacular.
Why you use jobs to be done and desired outcomes and not customers and personas.
Yeah. So again, trying to summarize it a bit, rather than what everybody's telling us to do, start with the customer. The next question is who's the customer and what's their persona and those type of things.
Mm-hmm.
Let's not go that way, but just look at the job to be done. What
Yep,
does the customer want to get done,
precisely.
and start from that.
Yep.
Great.
Start with the job, not with the person.
Exactly. Cool. Staying a bit in the articles academic sphere, I think this one comes from your LinkedIn channels, which I would highly advise people to have a look at. They're really interesting. You talk about the curse of the experience economy, Pine and Gilmore, but why
Yeah.
is it a curse and not a blessing?
So the experience economy was published in, I think it was 1997. And I remember reading it on the holiday in the south of France avidly. I'd spent 10 years before that doing service design and built around the concept of service quality and service marketing. A long time before service design became a popular concept in today's business. And the customer experience was a logical extension of service quality and customer satisfaction and that work on service design. So I picked up the book and read it, and I started applying some of the ideas. But there's a challenge in that, and that is that the experience economy promotes not the service, but the experience. Now, customers, as we said before, customers don't go for the experience primarily, they go for the service. They're looking for physical evidence that it actually does what it's going to do, the tangibles part. Looking for people who are knowledgeable and helpful. They're looking at people who can respond to changes in their requirements, the reliability, as well as the responsiveness part. And last but not least, they're looking for people who are friendly and care about them, like the empathy part in service quality. So Pine and Gilmore did us all a service by introducing the concept of the service of the experience economy. But at the same time, I believe they did a disservice by focusing on the experience rather than the service part, rather than integrated concepts. So I talk about the service experience. If we look at customer satisfaction ratings today, they've been falling over a period of time, particularly as a result of COVID. There are lots and lots. We all have countless stories of the fundamental service not working. You ring up a telco and you wait for an hour for a call. You want to change your flight because of COVID and you can't get through to the call center at all. And the website doesn't work. So the fundamentals are broken. Not getting the basics right, but the fluff, if you like, that's probably a bad word to use, but the ephemeral, the phenomenological part that sits on top rather than the fundamentals underneath. You need both, but you start with the bit underneath, the service, not with the experience, and not with this idea of creating memorable experiences. Most of the job, most of the heavy lifting is getting the service right and building an experience that matches with the service. That's why I think they did a disservice. But yeah, that's the way things are. Their job is to promote something new, to sell books. Did a great job. I've talked to Joe Pine about this in the past, a conference in Helsinki some years ago. Not fundamentally disagreed, but I think at the time it led us down the wrong path. It led us away from the fundamental service element.
Yeah, fully understood. And I think talk about the fluffy part. I think my next question, and this is against my own store, talking about loyalty programs, because that's where we obviously come into play. Loyalty programs are also something that should be an addition on top of a supreme service, right? Otherwise, it doesn't really make any sense.
That's a very good question. So I'm going to change it a little tiny bit. I think it was American Airlines. I think a couple of years ago, they had a turnover around $2.5 billion. It's a lot of money. But if you look at the American Air Advantage program, assuming this is American Airlines I'm talking about, I can't remember which airline it actually was, their loyalty program, Air Advantage, actually had a turnover of 2.6 billion American dollars. The loyalty program is now worth more than the airline. So that raises the question, if I'm flying with an airline, am I loyal to the loyalty program because of all the things I get as in response, or am I loyal to the airline? And I would argue, from my own experience of being a frequent traveler, I am not loyal to any airline, but I will use it because the loyalty program gives me benefits, if I have a choice, of course, that I can't get from just flying alone. And so that leads to the idea that the loyalty program becomes, most of them today, the larger ones are platforms, traditional business. So traditional business is a pipeline business. You put things on the shelf, you open the door, people come in and they buy from that. All you have to offer is that thing on the shelf. But I go to a typical aviation or airline frequent flyer program, and they have a whole range of things that I can buy with my points. And that could be thousands of items. They might have 10,000 ways to get points. So they've become a multi-sided market platform to build really powerful relationships with customers based around trading and transactions and what have you, and all sorts of partners you'd normally work with. You get points for that, rather than being an extension of the brand as they might have been in the past when they first started out in the 1980s. So I think today loyalty programs they've never been about loyalty per se, the old ones, they were about data anyway.
Yeah.
Getting data to be able to understand how customers and their customers' behavior. Now they've morphed into multi-sided market platforms where I can buy all sorts of services connected with airlines and travel, but also not connected with airlines and travel as well, all backed by the power to be able to collect something in return, some points, some miles, whatever it may be, and to put those towards something that I actually want. I've been involved in restructuring a number of European airline frequent flyer programs and designing half a dozen different loyalty programs in the past in telcos and airlines and other corporations as well. I'm never designing them for loyalty. I'm always designing them for the market side.
Yeah, and we see that happening in different industries like banking in Belgium. Very big banks are all having loyalty programs, offering different services. Telcos are doing it.
But if you think about it, a lot of the banks and telcos are driven by technology, and their products don't change that much very often, fundamentally. Banks' products haven't probably largely changed for 100 years. So if you can't compete around your core proposition, you have to add additional benefits, and creating a multi-sided market, becoming an everyday bank, as Accenture describes it. Well, I'm not only, if I did some work with a banking group in Australia, and they were looking at if you wanted to buy a mortgage, no problem, we could sell you a mortgage, but also had a portal where you could do they had a list of approved estate agents and approved solicitors and approved painters if you wanted to paint your picket fence, and removers and everything else. They provide a one-stop shop for the job of manage my home, including financing, moving, painting, buying, etc., etc., etc. If I have a one-stop shop, then why would I go anywhere else? I mean, we only need to look to things like WeChat in China, where it's not about fintech, it's about tech fin. They have tech, but they also do finance.
Yeah.
They also do everything else as well. So I use WeChat and or that that bundle of solutions. And why would I need to go anywhere else?
Many loyalty marketers are also talking about surprise and delight and emotional loyalty rather than the transactional. Getting bang for your buck is obviously interesting, but what about these nice extras, these random acts of kindness? Do you believe in those, or how do you see that tie into loyalty programs?
It is a very difficult area, I think, for a very simple reason. If you look at what delight is, delight has two components. It has an over delivery component. I'm not going to be delighted by the same thing they get every day. It also has a surprise component, fundamentally. And if you look at the work of people like Roland Rust and others, they describe what's in delight and when it works and when it doesn't work. So I can use delight in certain circumstances, and I should really choose those circumstances very carefully. But if you start to use it too often, the surprise element goes. So it's like, where's my delight? I had delight. Where's my delight? It's all missing. And the other thing that of course comes along with that as well is that if I had delight last time we transacted and I got something in addition and I don't get it this time, so I had a bonus and I've raised my expectations. So next time I talk to you, I'm expecting this additional service as well. So there's this concept of the zone of tolerance. What's the difference? The gap between the minimal accepted service and the maximum expected. Delight raises your maximum. That makes my life more complicated and more expensive to deliver the same. And I only start to win satisfaction by reaching the upper part of that zone of tolerance. If I'm making life more difficult myself, I'm making my life difficult, more expensive and less competitive. So back to your question, I would say surprise and delight in carefully dosed quantities for a specific purpose, maybe to recover a customer that had a really bad experience.
Mm-hmm.
Happens all the time. Maybe to delight somebody who you think, if I delight this person, maybe they'll go from being a customer to being a slightly more frequent customer, because maybe I can trigger them to delight to try something new.
Yeah, great. Thanks so much for the opportunity and great knowledge.
You have a good one. Thank you.
Bye bye. Bye bye.